You wander through a wind-swept cliffside, the salty scent of the sea clawing at your nostrils. At the cliff's base, the tide crashes against jagged stone, and half buried among the rocks lies a corpse. A pale, rigid, and strangely twisted corpse. The skin is stretched tight over bone, sunken eyes staring endlessly towards the horizon. From the ancient Greek, sights like this weren't rare. A war's aftermath, a famine's toll, or bodies washed ashore from a shipwreck could all etch the lifeless image into their minds. And somewhere between fear, grief, and superstition, that image may have become something more, something mythic, a creature whose very gaze could kill. The Gorgon. I'm Andrew, and this is Legends Untold. So before we get into this, let me just say I'm sorry. I had to take 2 days off. I got super sick Saturday night. I would spare you the details. Well, the worst details, but my body hurt. I think it was the flu, honestly. But I don't know. But I was sick to my stomach. My whole body hurt. It was bad. So I ended up taking 2 days off. I'm still not feeling great, but I have to make videos. It's just how it is. I have a commitment to members to do videos early, at least. So I have to do at least 2 videos today, and then this one will get published to everybody, and then members are going to get another video. So we'll see how that goes. I was not able to do the podcast this week. I think they put it on hold. I think Hart and Jake Hart's decided to put it on hold until I could get back into it, but I tried to tell them go ahead and do it without me, but they didn't want to do that. So anyways, let's get into this. Go get yourself a snack, get yourself something to drink, and yeah, let's go. Origins of the Gorgon. The Gorgon myth is one of the oldest in Greek mythology, appearing in oral tradition long before it was ever written down. The earliest surviving references come from Homer's Iliad and Odyssey in the 8th century BCE, where the Gorgon is described as not a specific figure, but as a monstrous, decapitated head, a mask of terror placed on Athena's shield. It's important to note that in these early mentions that there weren't 3 Gorgons yet, nor the later beauty named Medusa. Instead, the Gorgon was simply a fearsome, almost symbolic image, a monstrous face meant to ward off evil. The look of death. Here's where things get interesting. Historians and anthropologists have long suggested that the Gorgon's appearance, the bulging, staring eyes, wide mouth, rigid features, that they may have been directly inspired by actual corpses. In the Greek world, death was often public. In times of war, fallen soldiers would remain unburied on battlefields for days. Shipwrecks might deposit drowned sailors on shore, and in some cases, bodies would be displayed as warnings. Criminals left to rot. Political enemies executed and exposed. Over time, these scenes could turn into actual cultural imagination. Sunken eyes come naturally as the soft tissue dehydrates. Skin stretched tightly over bone is a hallmark of dehydration and decomposition. Rigid, mouth-open expression can occur from rigor mortis, especially if the person died suddenly, and discoloration. Pallor in death, sometimes greenish or grayish hues, could be seen as monstrous. Also common in when people would think that bodies were vampires, they would pull them up, and sometimes they would be gray. So that's why sometimes vampires are depicted as gray as well. Now, imagine this image stylized. The Greeks were already creating masks for theater, festivals, and rituals. The idea of a face frozen and a horrifying stillness of death could easily translate into something supernatural, and that is very possibly the genesis of the Gorgon's terrifying visage. The Gorgon's evolution. By the time of Hesiod's Theogony, around 700 BCE, the single symbolic Gorgon face had evolved into 3 sisters, Athena, Uriel, and Medusa. Athena and Uriel were immortal, Medusa was mortal. All three were said to have serpent hair, bronze hands, and the ability to turn anyone who looked at them into stone. The serpent motif itself may have multiple layers of meaning. Snakes were feared and respected for their venom and their association with death. They also shed their skin, symbolizing transformation, fitting for a figure who was once human. In some cases, snake hair could simply have been an artistic shorthand for wildness and chaos. Medusa before the curse. One of the most compelling and in many ways tragic evolutions of the myth comes from later Roman sources, particularly Ovid's Metamorphosis. Here, Medusa isn't born a monster. Instead, she is described as a breathtakingly beautiful maiden, serving as priestess in the temple of Athena. Medusa before the curse. One of the most compelling and in many ways tragic evolutions of the myth comes from later Roman sources, particularly Ovid's Metamorphosis. Here, Medusa isn't born a monster. Instead, she is described as a breathtakingly beautiful maiden, serving as priestess in the temple of Athena. Her hair was almost striking. The envy of the world, as Ovid puts it. As the story goes, Poseidon, god of the sea, became enamored with her, and in some versions he seduces her, in others he forces himself upon her inside of Athena's sacred temple. This act was not only a violation against Medusa, but an insult to the goddess herself, furious at her temple for being defiled. Chose not to punish Poseidon, a recurring theme in Greek myth where male gods often go unscathed, but instead she punishes Medusa. Athena transformed her once beautiful hair into writhing serpents, and her gaze into one of instant death. From that moment, Medusa could no longer look upon another living thing without destroying it. The maiden priestess became the very embodiment of fear, exile, and the untouchable. For those that don't know, Athena is my chosen patron. She's my chosen deity. Not that that's important to anything, just throwing that out there. Athena's goated, in my opinion. The symbolism of the transformation. This shift in Medusa's origin dramatically changed the way she was viewed. Earlier Gorgon imagery was largely protective. The Gorgon's head was used on shields, doorways, and armor to ward off evil. But with the Ovidian retelling, Medusa became a symbol of violated innocence, divine injustice, and female rage. If we tie this back to the corpse imagery, Medusa's transformation could be seen as the metaphorical death of her humanity. Her beauty, the symbolic life and fertility, is replaced with death's stillness and horror. Her eyes, once capable of returning affection, now bring only eternal stillness of stone, the deathly aesthetic in Greek art. By the classical period, 5th and 4th century BCE, depictions of the Gorgon show a strange duality. In earlier archaic art, she is monstrous, bulging eyes, tusks, protruding tongue, features reminiscent of ritual masks and the grotesque stillness of corpses. But by the late classical Hellenistic periods, Medusa's face is softened, still otherworldly, but tragically beautiful. This shift mirrors the myth's evolution from a purely monstrous guardian figure into a tragic, cursed woman. Some scholars suggest that this was also tied into the changing Greek burial customs, as funerary art moved towards idealized depictions of the dead, even in tragic circumstances. Medusa's appearance began to blend beauty and horror, much like the way loved ones might remember the dead as they were in real life, not as they appeared in decay. Perseus and the Severed Head. No Gorgon discussion is complete without Perseus. Sent to retrieve Medusa's head as an impossible task, he received divine help. Athena's polished shield to see without looking directly at her, Hermes' winged sandals, and Hades' helm of invisibility. Perseus beheaded her while she slept, and from her neck sprang Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysaor, a golden warrior. Children she bore with Poseidon. Here's where the corpse imagery came back again. Perseus carried the head as a weapon, just as warriors in earlier Greece might have carried enemies' heads or masked to terrify foes. Even in death, the Gorgon's face held the same unblinking, petrifying stare. the very presence of the corpse mask that likely inspired her in the first place. The Gorgon as protection. Paradoxically, while the Gorgons were deadly, her image was often used as protection. An apotropic symbol meant to turn evil away. Temples, armor, coins, and even children's cradles could bear the Gorgon's face. The logic was simple. If this image could freeze and destroy, it could also repel spirits, curses, and bad luck. In this sense, the Gorgon was just not a monster. She was a guardian, much like lions at the temple gates are gargoyles on cathedrals. Legacy and modern interpretation. Today, Medusa is perhaps the most famous of the Gorgons. And her story is told in many forms, sometimes as a villain, sometimes as a misunderstood victim, sometimes as a feminist icon. The theory that her features were inspired by the look of real corpses adds a chilling layer to her legend, reminding us that myths often begin in the real and tangible fears of human existence. The Gorgon's eyes still stare across centuries, not just the eyes of a monster, but the eyes of the dead, the eyes of injustice, and perhaps the eyes of protection. My name is Andrew. This has been Legends Untold. Let me know down below what you think of the Gorgon myth. I tried my best, and I did a ton of research just to make sure that I had everything correct. I was already familiar with her being a servant of Athena and being forced upon in Athena's temple. Call that what you will, but I have to moderate it in the script for YouTube. But I was already kind of familiar with that story. That was the story that I always leaned towards. So it was kind of interesting to see that she was mentioned prior to that as one of the three sisters. There's three other sisters that I'm familiar of, the Stygian witches, but I'm not 100% sure they're Greek or not. I don't know. I can look into that if that's something you guys want. Let me know down below if there's any other Greek myths you want me to cover. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that cool stuff. And if you want to support the channel, hit up the merch bar down below. Pick yourself up some dope merch. If you want to support the channel more directly, there is a Streamlabs link I have labeled in every video now. That goes directly to PayPal. That goes to Streamlabs PayPal page for me. Basically, I changed it from a direct link to PayPal to that so that I could track that kind of stuff more efficiently. What it does is it will now show up in streams to show who was the last person. It's called tipping. So it'll show in streams who was the last person that tipped. It'll also show who has tipped the most. And in doing stuff like that, also in streams, there's a thing called Stream Boss, to where the person who whoever defeats the Stream Boss becomes the new Stream Boss. And then others have the ability to super chat, super thank, and become a member. Subscriptions, I think, also deal damage, and tips deal the most damage to the Stream Boss, and whoever defeats Stream Boss becomes the next. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. I've added a ton of stuff to memberships to lives to try and get more interaction with people that way. There's gambling. Whenever I go live now, I always give people points, and you can !gamble and then the number of points you want to gamble, and it will roll 100-sided dice to see if you win or lose. If you win, you get more points. If you lose, you just lose. There's not really anything to it. There's a loyalty thing that I can turn on to where like people can do things with points. I'm not 100% sure how that works yet. I'm looking into it more, but yeah. Anyways, long story short, PayPal link has been replaced with the Streamlabs link to PayPal. That way I can just track it more efficiently. It gets you on streams. It gets your name on streams to show that you are a tipper, that you have recently tipped and that you're supporting the channel. So stuff like that. I'm working on other stuff for streams because I want to do more live streams, not just gaming. I want to do other things. I'm just kind of working out what I want to do though. So I don't want to have just like a boring, just go live and just talk to you guys, because to me that's like I talk to you guys in video all the time. So I kind of want to do something when I'm streaming. That way, you guys have some sort of actual entertainment, because I don't think I'm that entertaining personally. I'm my own worst critic. I'm always going to be the hardest person in the world. That's just me. That's something in my head. It's one of those things where like you don't think you're ever enough for people. That's just always me. Sorry. I have been sick, and being sick means that my dopamine has dropped off. I haven't had caffeine in like a week. So like with ADHD brain, you're seeing it now very clearly. ADHD brain. With ADHD brain, caffeine triggers dopamine. ADHD, our brains don't trigger dopamine normally. So like we're constantly seeking some sort of dopamine hit. And caffeine is like the surest way to get dopamine into an ADHD brain. So it's been like this weird thing between like being sick, being depressed, and just without the dopamine, the depression is kind of the number one thing. And it's like, anyways, guys, long story short, I'm going to get out of here. I've got another video to make, and I hope you guys will tune in for this video and the next video. Anyways, I'm going to leave you be. I'm rambling. I'm sorry, but I will see you on the next. Peace out.
In Athena's temple, cursed and punished for her sin, Medusa fled to an island away from all men. Bathed in beauty, her sisters comfort her. Raging in agony, she tries to cure, but there's a fire in her soul, rage she can't control. No man will look at her with a gaze that pure. Late she burns, a lover that turns to stone. Why must this be? She curses Zeus and Poseidon. We're the victims of brutality, and yet you punish me. But there's a fire in her soul, rage she can't control. No man will look at her with a gaze that pure. Fire in her soul, rage she can't control. No man will look at her with a gaze that pure. No, you can't look, don't look in her eyes, 'cause all you men, you tell her lies. No, you can't look, don't look in her eyes, 'cause all you men, you tell her lies. Warriors come, hypocrisy is asking for her head. No man will look at her with a gaze that pure. No, in a rage she burns, a lover that turns to stone. Why must this be? She curses Zeus and Poseidon. We're the victims of brutality, and yet you punish me. But there's a fire in her soul, rage she can't control. No man will look at her with a gaze that pure. Fire in her soul, rage she can't control. No man will look at her with a gaze that pure. Fire in the gaze that pure. No, you can't look, don't look in her eyes, 'cause all you men, you tell her lies. No, you can't look, don't look in her eyes, 'cause all you men, you tell her lies. The warriors come, led by Perseus, asking for her head.